Rationalism in Islam.
Where there is no rationalism, there cannot be any secularism. When there is no secularism, there will not be any democracy. You might have observed, most of the unrest, racial discrimination are happening in democratic countries. For example, the white superiority and racial bias are existing in every democratic country, even today. But the kingdoms are becoming more secular for all practical purposes. Freedom and independence cannot be taken literally, all are subject to hidden and unwritten conditions.
For the first time in history, rationalism was documented and implemented as state policy by Islamic rulers.
Rationalism and Islamic dogma both evolved from interpretation of the same Quranic verse in different ways. The philosophers were free to express their opinions, quoting the supporting verses of Quran. Each school used Quranic verses to support its own thoughts.
Each phrase in Quran is coined in such an intelligent way that they are applicable to all ages and embedded with figurative speeches, context-specific. You cannot take literal meaning. So it is not understandable by common man.
That is the reason Muslims believe that Quran could not have been written by a man who never went to any school.
Indian Muslims, rooted in Indian culture, remained ignorant, not updated with rational, philosophical doctrines.
Philosopher Averroes confirmed that learned wisdom and the Sharia are two ways of expressing a single truth and therefore are not in conflict. Averroes believed the Sharia did not prohibit rational thinking, but on the contrary, supported it.
The present-day rationalism is nothing as compared to Islamic rationalism and achievements by Islamic rationalists.
The new atheism or rationalism world over did not produce any results, never helped to solve any problems, rather they confuse and provoke people against each other's faiths. When governments are pseudo-secular and pseudo-democratic, the rationalists fail in their mission.
In the Golden Age from 7th to 14th century, liberation of speech and thoughts lead to miracles in science and technology, along with advances in science and philosophy. Arab and Persian lands produced outspoken rationalists and atheists.
In Basra, Wasil ibn Ata founded a rationalist school to represent Mu'tazilite thought and to teach Muslims in 699 to 749 new methods of thinking. Generally, Mu'tazilites dealt with many Islamic problems, religious, philosophical, political and social, but through a rational perspective.
Al-Farabi, in 870 to 950, completed what Al-Kindi had initiated, and established Islam's first philosophical doctrines.
Avicenna was a student of Al-Farabi's writings in 980 to 1037. Avicenna, as a physician and philosopher, distinguished himself by his clarified explanations. This made his philosophy spread like wildfire from nation to nation.
His work, The Canon of Medicine, strongly influenced the teaching of medical science until the 16th century.
Most prominent Golden Age scholars have been associated with rationalist thought and atheism as well.
Muhammad al-Warraq in 9th century, Ibn al-Rawandi in 827 to 911, al-Razi in 854 to 925, and al-Mari in 973 to 1058 were notable rationalists.
Islamic caliphs devised foolproof, rational, logical and truly practical systems to be followed for life, and made them as law.
Those rational prescriptions are applicable to health, hygiene, food habits, worship, trade, economics, family, relationships, justice, both for the citizens and for their rulers.
It is not a simple atheism or rationalism, but a complete prescription for life.
Such a detailed guideline does not exist in any civil or criminal law of any country. The current intellectual atmosphere in the Islamic world is the continuation of that era. We can see how
Arabs and Muslims were business travelers and are tolerant to all cultural and ethnic groups. Secularism is a part of Sharia. While the Aryans believed in racial purity, Muslims promoted interracial mixing. It was proved in India also. Every Mahal king born in India was born to a Hindu mother. Scholars and engineers from various faiths, Muslims, Christian, Jews, Hindus of the Islamic world contributed enormously to science and new inventions. From Muslim-born philosophers to princes, all created a unique culture that influenced societies in every continent. People from all over the world were invited to live and work there. Scientific and intellectual achievements blossomed in the Golden Age and passed on to Europe while Spain was under Islamic rule that resulted in European Renaissance. It was the golden era of Jews also.
The king is called the protector of all religions.
Islamic rule does not allow practicing superstitions and idol worship. No discrimination based on color and race. Millions of Christians and Jews live in Islamic countries as native citizens.
In all Arab countries, public preaching of any religion is prohibited, including Islam. Muslim teachings not matching with the officially accepted interpretation of Islam is prohibited. Any illiterate could confuse and misguide people, thereby initiating religious hatred.
So, some Islamic evangelist groups are also prohibited to enter into Saudi Arabia.
The media is prohibited from spreading fake news, hatred, or undermining human dignity and rights.
Wearing religious symbols of any kind, in public, is prohibited. It is the policy followed in US also, for the government servants. You do not get any religious symbol or picture in any office, except king's photo. Non-Muslim students in private schools are not required to study Islam. The Indian secularism made Sanskrit as a compulsory subject. Examples of rationalistic practices you see in Arab countries include, closing the mosque after prayer time. Open only for prayer. The priests is just for conducting prayers, not for preaching. Religious education is finished in schools, no more preaching needed. Every priest has his own profession or business for income. Living on religious income is prohibited. The mosques will not have an entry fee or token or advanced bookings. God does not depend on followers' donations. Mosques do not accumulate gold or bank balance.
There are only 3 official holidays in a year. Celebration of Muhammad's birthday and visits to the tombs are discouraged. Islam believes birth and death are one-time phenomena in life. Muharram celebrations, Ashura is banned in all places except for one. In India, we are habituated to see the glorification and worshipping of weapons of gods, animals of gods, worshipping symbols such as cross, or believing the eatable and drinkable from temples are holy, are prohibited in Islamic countries. So are the ghost and possession of spirits of the dead. Dead men have no powers. Islam prohibits believing evil eyes and bad omen and all kinds of spiritual treatments for them. There is nothing called grave worship like we see in India. Grave worship is prohibited in all Arab countries. Praying is not allowed even at Prophet's grave. There are no magic and miracle cures. One needs to be physically and mentally fit to enter into Mecca. The rulers are accountable for poverty-related crimes. So, they see that no citizen starves. Arabic bread is either free or very cheap with bakers. Government supplies the flour free.
Hygiene at home or in public places is their first priority.
Punishments and rewards are instant, before any manipulation happens. Even accident deaths are considered to be murders, and punishments are for lifetime. The right to forgive the convict is always given to the victim and his family, not to the president.
Suppression of females. The Indian dowry system, which are the major cause of female infanticide in India, was prohibited right from Prophet's period. Instead, Muslims have meher system of paying the lifetime needs of the girl for marriage. That protects her during any desperate times like death of husband in wars. Meher makes women confident, independent and powerful. The need of money for marriage is the biggest motivation of men to earn and establish early in life. Dowry is the single reason for the backwardness of resource-rich India and the great success of Arabs in deserts.
All these rational prescriptions are collectively called Sharia. The law of Sharia became a nightmare to corrupt rulers and failed democracies in other countries.
The acceptance of Islamic faith, kalima, starts with the first sentence, there is no God except, and it continues. Muslims do not use the English word God or any of its equivalents because the word God is associated with gender, plural, and all human attributes. The usage of God as gods, goddess, son of God, father of God, and similar are prohibited in Islam.
Only restrictions are alcohol and cinema halls.
We shall see the concept of devil or Satan and jinni in Islam and other religions.
And also, the real history of new atheism and the reactions of governments, formation of satanic church, satanic Bible, how Hitler, George Bush, and other governments suppressed atheists. How atheists got their rights, what is the role of United Nations, the role of atheists and rationalists in Indian freedom fighting, why atheists are continuously been executed in India, everything in the next episodes. Watch and share please.